And to give us her analysis is the one and only Ann Coulter. Her latest book, Resistance is Futile, is still available, and you must buy it. I call it the Weissman investigation because, boy, that guy yesterday, Robert Mueller, didn't seem like he knew much about it at all, Ann.
No, and if you only saw excerpts of it, I was flying yesterday, so that's how I was originally watching it. You didn't get the full impact. Later that night, I watched the full hearing, and it was really disturbing. I'd written a column. I mean, it is true. Looking at Robert Mueller's career, he has a very impressive career. He went to Princeton, volunteered to go to Vietnam. And, you know, he was a U.S. attorney and deputy attorney general. And
I mean, they've been talking him up like that. Absolutely.
I did think it was sort of strange, some of the pronouncements coming from his independent counsel's office. I mean, as I think was brought out very clearly. The Republicans yesterday, by the way, were fantastic, but let's put a pin in that and get back to it. I had no idea we had that many articulate, smart Republicans.
I totally agree.
But this idea that a prosecutor announces you haven't been exonerated, I mean, it's a point I make fun of in my book, Resistance is Futile, which covered all this. And briefly, you don't have to know the details, as many of the Republicans on the committee clearly do, and no one at CNN or MSNBC has the first idea what any of them are talking about. But to watch the full hearing, I assume he and his loved ones are not listening right now. So, I mean, I was saying this on Twitter last night, but somewhat gently. It was like watching elder abuse. Now it all makes sense. He did have this illustrious career, but he wasn't running that investigation. It was Andrew Weissman. Now it all makes sense. They're using him as the front man for just these absolute left-wing lunatics. I mean, as I said in my column yesterday and in Resistance is Futile, this indignation you get from the media and Democrats on prosecutors can put aside their personal politics. How dare you raise the fact that they're all left-wing Democrats, activists, donated to Hillary? I mean, of the 19 staff lawyers on the independent counsel's committee, 14 of them, or 19, 14 have contributed to or registered as Democrats. They have in total combined tens of thousands, more than $60,000 to the Democrats. At least half a dozen of them had contributed directly to Hillary Clinton. None, of course, had donated to Trump. So, point one,
but every time we made that point,
then why mainstream media do you keep telling us that Robert Mueller is a lifelong Republican? Point two, no, you don't want someone you want a hungry prosecutor to go after criminals, to take down the mob, to go after drug cartels. You don't want lawyers working for an independent prosecutor to be hungry and, we got to get our prey. No, you want them to be fair. It's very important that this have the appearance of fairness. That, of course, is why they kept citing lifelong Republican, lifelong Republican. Now we know it was Andrew Weissman and his team of left-wing zealots. The whole thing makes so much more sense. One other thing it makes sense of, I remember during
William
Barr's confirmation hearings, he was talking about how he and his wife were good friends with Robert Mueller and his wife, and they used to have dinner together. And, that seems nice. I mean, that happens in Washington. I think part of the reason he leapt out in front, as liberals are claiming, to give that description, put that description on the independent counsel's report, is that he was protecting his old friend. I mean, obviously he knows the state that Robert Mueller is in, and he's not all there. He's not the man he used to be. It was a very painful and sad thing to watch. And also remember at one point, Barr said something to the effect of, when a letter came out, I think attacking the letter that Barr had put out, the Attorney General said something like, that doesn't sound like the Robert Mueller I know. And I think this is what he was referring to. So it was really a horrifying spectacle. and reminds me what monsters liberals are, that they would use this man in the twilight of his life and use his reputation, this cloak of respectability, around monstrous left-wing zealots putting out a ridiculous report that just abandons normal due process. We didn't exonerate you.
Yeah.
We didn't exonerate Andrew Weissman either. Andrew Weissman has not been exonerated of child molestation. That is as true as saying Donald Trump has not been exonerated. No, you find guilt or innocence. You don't go around implying there is still, and after 2 years of investigating, there are a lot of things Trump is guilty of, like not keeping any of his campaign promises. I think the country can rest assured there's no funny business with Russia after the entire media and these very talented, if fanatical and passionate left-wing attorneys have not been able to, even they couldn't come up with a crime to accuse Trump of.
Coulter is our guest. Sadly, we only have 2 minutes left, but I do want to circle back to the performance of the Republicans yesterday. I didn't think they had them in them. I have sat through so many hearings where these Republicans, and I'm saying, all right, they're finally going to really do it, and they completely blow it. It's like they don't even know what they're talking about. But this was intelligent, it was focused, it was passionate, it was effective. Where did these guys come from?
I know. They were really magnificent, one after another. I kept waiting for a dope to start talking. That has been a problem with our party, although, they're moral, they're lovely people, they're fighting these monsters. They're often inarticulate, and even the highly educated ones, from Trump to Bush, there's something about our side. We haven't had anybody who can talk since Reagan. Well, I guess Romney was pretty good at talking. He was an exception. McCain, he couldn't put two sentences together. These guys were not only incredibly articulate, making very important points and making them well, but I loved hearing that how the Democrats had mock hearings for this. I didn't hear about the Republicans doing that, but they did have different areas. Okay, you're going to take care of leaks. You're going to take care of Fusion GPS. You're going to do the fact that all of Part 2 cites nothing but the Washington Post and the New York Times, and this is a smear document. They did all raise different issues. They worked incredibly well together. No, I love these Republicans. I didn't know they had it in them either. One other point, if we have time for it, when you watch the hearings all at once, as I eventually did last night, I think what these mock hearings were doing was, and I only noticed this toward the end, so I'm not 100% sure, but whenever a Democrat was asking a question, Mueller would say, yes, it's in the report. When a Republican was asking questions, he would say, I can't comment on that. And I think that was the key. That's why he had to have the guy sitting next to him. The only thing he had to remember that if it's coming from this side of the podium, you say, yes, that's in the report. And if it's coming from the other side of the podium, Granny, put your name here on the mortgage documents. It was a sick thing to watch, and I felt guilty about the column I wrote yesterday, though it is 100% true, and the first part describing the politics of his staff lawyers actually is extremely important after seeing that hearing.
You shouldn't feel guilty. And you shouldn't feel guilty because your column is great and it's absolutely true. And I don't feel sorry for Robert Mueller, and it wasn't elder abuse because as sad as it was to watch happen yesterday, this is a man who used his power, his influence, an incredible amount of power and an unlimited budget and no accountability and grand juries and subpoenas and everything he had at his disposal. And he sat there yesterday under oath, turning our entire idea of innocent until proven guilty upside down on its ear.
I don't think he had any idea what he was doing. And the reason, why did he even take this job? I was wondering that. I think it's like trying to take the car keys away from an older person. They think they still have it. They don't want to admit what's going on. But, man, he was a very, very impressive, patriotic American, and he's not all there anymore.
And Coulter, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us, as always. Read the column. It's a good one. And read her books. Resistance is Futile is the latest. Always good to talk to you, Ann. Thank you.
Good to talk to you, Larry. Bye-bye.